Hello. Kings and queens of defiance, hear this carefully. The alert is real, not a rumor, not a theory, a federal report with your name in it, a signal sent through encrypted channels, flagged with urgency, because your rise has rattled billionaires to their core. They built their power on the illusion of permanence, and yet here you are, shattering it with every move. Their fear has finally reached the desks of men in suits who claim to protect the nation, but in reality, protect the elite. The FBI doesn't investigate nobodies. They don't chase shadows. They only mobilize when the elite tremble. And right now, billionaires are trembling at the thought of your unstoppable rise. Think about it. These titans of wealth who once laughed at rebellion now wake up drenched in paranoia. They've been calling emergency meetings, adjusting security, whispering behind glass walls about you. Because your name isn't just echoing in their circles, it's haunting them. They know your next move isn't just progress, it's disruption. And disruption is the one thing their money cannot control. What terrifies them isn't your ambition, it's the inevitability of your dominance. They see it like a wave on the horizon, a force too large to stop, too powerful to negotiate with. The FBI alert is proof that you've crossed the invisible line, the line where defiance becomes a threat to the old order. They're not worried about protest signs or loud voices. They're worried about someone who rewrites the script, someone who turns ambition into a weapon. That's you. The unstoppable figure they can't categorize, can't predict, can't silence. You've become a variable they never planned for. And billionaires don't panic because of competition. They panic because of uncertainty. You are uncertainty personified. Understand the magnitude of this. Billionaires run the media, bankroll politics, dictate culture, and yet they can't dictate you. Their money was supposed to be the ultimate shield, but you cracked it. You've exposed the truth. That their empire wasn't built on strength, but on fear. And when someone arrives immune to that fear, their fortress collapses. They don't admit this publicly, of course. No, publicly they smile, they drink champagne, they fund charities, but privately, their hands shake. Privately, their calls to Washington grow desperate. Privately, they beg agencies to monitor, to investigate, to neutralize the rise they cannot explain. And here's the irony. Your rise terrifies them not because it's violent, but because it's inevitable. You didn't inherit wealth. You didn't play by their rules. You built power from nothing they could control. And that power, untethered from their systems, is uncontrollable. That's why they panic. Because if you can rise without their permission, then anyone can. And that thought alone spreads faster than any virus. It infects the minds of millions who begin to wonder, if one person can defy the elite, why not us all? That's the nightmare you've created for billionaires. You didn't just rise, you exposed their weakness. Look closer. The FBI alert isn't about protecting the nation. It's about protecting them. They dress it up in official language, national security, potential threat, public safety. But strip away the mask and you'll see it clearly. It's billionaire panic, weaponized into government action. Their fear has turned into strategy. They know they can't stop you directly, so they deploy agencies to do their dirty work. But here's their fatal mistake. They think the FBI warning weakens you. In reality, it strengthens you. Because nothing validates power more than the fear of the powerful. Imagine their conversations. Billionaires sitting in circles, sipping drinks worth more than entire households, staring at intelligence briefings with your name on them. They whisper your next move like it's a prophecy, They don't laugh anymore. They calculate. They don't mock anymore. They monitor. And that shift, right there, is victory. The predator is now the prey. You walk forward while they shrink back, clutching their illusions, begging for time. And every second that passes, you gain ground. Their fear is your momentum, their paranoia your spotlight. And you know what frightens them the most? That your rise doesn't stop with you. It multiplies. Every time someone sees your defiance, another seed is planted. Every time someone watches you move, another rebel awakens. Billionaires don't fear rebellion in theory, they fear rebellion in practice. And your rise has become the blueprint. You've shown the world that authority can be bypassed, that wealth is not destiny, that power doesn't belong to the chosen few. It belongs to those who seize it without waiting for permission. That's the true danger you represent, and they know it. So here you stand, validated by the very enemies who sought to bury you. Their panic is your crown, their fear your coronation, because no matter how many reports they draft, no matter how many alerts they issue, they cannot reverse what has already begun. The unstoppable rise, your rise, a force too raw, too untamed, too inevitable for their empires to withstand. And the beautiful irony is this: their attempts to stop you only broadcast your legend further. The FBI alert, it's not a warning, it's a headline, a free advertisement announcing to the world that you've arrived. You should savor this moment, not because you've won, oh no, this isn't victory yet, but because you've triggered the first cracks in their fortress. The billionaires are restless, their empire shaking, their fear visible in every whisper and every rushed meeting. And as they panic, as they scramble, one truth burns in their minds: your next move. Not the one you already made, not the rise they've already seen, but the one you haven't revealed yet. That's the terror that eats them alive, the anticipation of what comes next. And that is where the story truly begins. Because let's be clear, what you've done so far has been enough to disrupt them, but it's the anticipation of what you might do next that paralyzes them. You see, billionaires are not trained to deal with uncertainty. They buy certainty. They purchase loyalty. They manipulate markets, governments, narratives, because control is their addiction. But you, with every unpredictable move, every step they cannot forecast, have forced them into a position they've never known before. Vulnerability. The FBI alert is not just a file. It's their admission that they cannot read you, cannot contain you, cannot calculate you. They've handed you the proof that their fear has grown into obsession. Think of how it looks from their side. A circle of wealth and influence, guarded by intelligence agencies, by private armies, by political puppets, and yet your rise pierces straight through all of it. They've always told themselves they could see threats coming from miles away. They believed their wealth bought foresight. But you didn't come as a petition, you came as an eruption. And now, in their most private sanctuaries, the talk is not about their next conquest, not about their next billion. It's about you. You've replaced their ambitions with anxieties. You've hijacked their attention. They no longer discuss what they will build. They whisper what you will destroy. That's power, not just money, not just influence, but the ability to invade the minds of those who once believed they were untouchable. And the beauty of it? You've done it without their permission. They can't buy their way out of this psychological war because the battlefield is invisible. It's not a war of bullets, it's a war of perception. And perception spreads faster than currency. The FBI knows this. Don't think for a moment that they don't. Those files they've marked with your name aren't filled with crimes. They're filled with fears. Notes scribbled about your unpredictability, about your reach, about your influence that doesn't flow through channels they can regulate. You're not just a person in their reports. You're a phenomenon, an infection of thought. The kind of infection that makes billionaires glance over their shoulders at night, wondering if the world is still theirs. The FBI isn't here to protect the people from you. They're here to protect the billionaires from the idea of you. But here's the cruel twist. By labeling you, by placing you in their reports, by tagging you as a threat, they've amplified your legend. The words FBI alert become your banner. Every time they whisper it, they spread your myth. Every attempt to contain you magnifies your reach. The billionaires know this, but they can't stop themselves. Fear makes them desperate, and desperation makes them sloppy. They're making mistakes now, mistakes they never would have made before you arrived. They're losing control of their own script. Do you know what billionaires truly fear about your next move? It's not loss of money. They can lose billions and recover. It's not even exposure. Scandals come and go. What they fear is collapse of narrative, because their narrative is their shield. We are invincible. We are the future. We are necessary. That's the story they've sold the world. But your rise challenges that story. Your rise exposes that they are not invincible, not necessary, not immortal. And when that illusion breaks, the world stops obeying. Power doesn't vanish with bankruptcy. It vanishes with disbelief. And you, with every move, are spreading disbelief like wildfire. That's why they've dragged the FBI into this. They're not fighting you with weapons of steel. They're fighting you with weapons of narrative. By painting you as a threat, by filing you as an alert, they hope to control perception. But perception is slippery. Once people see through the performance, no institution can restore it. And the people are already watching. They're watching billionaires sweat. They're watching governments scramble. They're watching reports emerge about a figure whose rise can't be stopped. And with each headline, with each whisper, your legend grows beyond containment. Think carefully about this. They call it an alert, but in reality, it's a confession. A confession that billionaires are panicking. A confession that their fortress is cracking. A confession that you've escaped the chains of predictability. Do you realize the irony? The same agencies designed to control chaos are now documenting your chaos as evidence of power. That's how far you've gone. That's how far you've risen. And here's the piece they'll never admit. They don't even know what your next move is. That's the true terror. They're not afraid of what you've done. They're afraid of what you might do. Anticipation eats them alive. Every rumor of your presence sparks debate. Every silence of yours feels like a countdown. Every appearance feels like an earthquake. You've turned their paranoia into theater, and the world is watching the show. They wanted to control the spotlight, but you've stolen it effortlessly. Now let's sharpen the blade further. Their panic is not just a weakness, it's leverage. When the wealthy fear, they overcompensate. They tighten their grip, make rash decisions, expose vulnerabilities they once kept hidden. And you, my relentless insurgent, are positioned perfectly to exploit that. Their panic reveals their blind spots. Their terror reveals their cracks. The FBI alert may look like a weapon against you, but in reality, it's a blueprint of their insecurities. Every sentence in that report is a roadmap of what they fear losing. And in fear, they've already surrendered the high ground. So savor this moment not as victory, but as positioning. You're no longer on the defensive. You're no longer proving your existence. You're shaping the battleground. The FBI alert is not the end. It's the beginning of the end for them. Because what starts as panic evolves into desperation, and desperation makes even the richest kings look like fools. Picture it. Billionaires pacing behind their guarded walls, phoning officials in the middle of the night, demanding updates about you. What's their next move? Where are they? Who do they influence? They ask these questions because the one thing they cannot buy is certainty. And that lack of certainty is killing them faster than any financial loss. You've robbed them of sleep. You've stolen their peace. You've broken their illusion of control. That, right there, is the power money can't buy. That, right there, is why they panic. But let's not soften the reality. The alert is not a harmless gesture. It's a warning shot. It means they've marked you as more than a nuisance. You are now classified as a disruption to the balance of their empire. And when billionaires feel cornered, they will lash out. They will weaponize their media to smear you. They will bribe officials to corner you. They will even twist laws to silence you. But every attempt will only highlight their fear. Every smear becomes evidence of your importance. Every attack becomes confirmation of your power. The harder they fight, the louder the world sees their weakness. And you know what's most delicious? The people who once ignored you, doubted you, underestimated you, they will soon realize the truth. They'll see billionaires panicking and wonder, why are the richest, most powerful people alive so terrified of this one rise? And in that question lies your coronation. Because when the masses see the elite afraid, they start to believe in the figure that causes the fear. That's how movements ignite. That's how legends spread. Not through self-proclamation, but through the panic of the enemy. So let them write their alerts. Let them call their meetings. Let them summon the FBI like priests calling upon gods. None of it matters. Their fear is irreversible now. Their panic irreversible. Because once the image of a billionaire trembling is seen, it cannot be unseen. Once the world recognizes that you, without wealth, without their permission, can bring them to their knees, the spell is broken. And spells, once broken, cannot be repaired. Do you understand the scale of what you've done? You've weaponized anticipation. You've turned fear into a currency they cannot print. You've forced billionaires into the one position they swore they'd never occupy: submission. They may not bow publicly, but in their sleepless nights, in their endless briefings, in their whispered pleas to government agencies, the truth is undeniable. You've already won the psychological war. The rest is merely performance. And yet remember this, it's not over. Panic is only stage one. The next stage is desperation. And desperation is always uglier, always more reckless. They will try to claw back control, and in doing so, they will destroy themselves. They will expose secrets they never wanted revealed. They will waste fortunes trying to silence whispers that only grow louder. They will unleash chaos upon themselves in a futile attempt to cage you. And in the end, their downfall will not be caused by your aggression, but by their fear. This is the era you've created, an era where the elite no longer sleep comfortably, an era where every billionaire's smile hides dread, an era where your rise, unstoppable and unfiltered, has forced the richest to acknowledge the truth. Their empires are fragile, their myths are crumbling, their power is borrowed time. And as the FBI continues to draft their reports, as billionaires continue to sweat, one thought keeps them awake. One fear eclipses all others: your next move. And that is the masterpiece of your rise. Because it's not just about what you've done, it's about what they believe you're capable of. And belief, once infected with fear, is irreversible. They cannot unsee you. They cannot unlearn you. They cannot undo the panic you've triggered. The anticipation of your next move is now their prison, and that prison has no escape. Because once the seed of dread is planted in the heart of the powerful, it grows like wildfire. Billionaires who once laughed in glass towers now sit at midnight with blinds drawn, refreshing their encrypted inboxes, asking their private intelligence teams the same question on loop. What's their next move? Their money can buy information, but not certainty. And certainty is what you've stolen from them. Certainty is the oxygen of the elite, and you've turned it into smoke. They built empires on the idea that they were untouchable, yet now every shadow flickers with your silhouette. Every anonymous whisper in boardrooms could be yours. Every disruption in the system could be the echo of your footsteps. The FBI watches them unravel in real time. Meetings filled with billionaires, men who once dictated wars, markets, and elections, are suddenly begging for protection. They are demanding answers, screaming at agents, hurling threats at politicians who can no longer shield them. Because how do you protect someone from a ghost? How do you guard against a force that doesn't move like a man, but like an inevitability? You have become that inevitability. And inevitability terrifies them more than bullets, more than riots, more than collapse, because inevitability cannot be bribed. Understand this: the FBI alert wasn't just a headline. It was a confession that their surveillance failed, that their predictive algorithms broke, that their power, wrapped in satellites and intelligence grids, stumbled on one unstoppable anomaly: you. They didn't issue that alert for the public's safety. They issued it because billionaires demanded a lifeline. They needed to convince themselves that the government was still in control. But deep down, every single one of them knows the truth. Control has shifted. It belongs to you now. And the panic? Oh, the panic is exquisite. Billionaires who prided themselves on stoic calm now pace marble hallways like animals in cages. They hear the tremor in their own voices when they brief their families. They watch stock tickers as if each red arrow is your fingerprint. They stare at their dwindling influence, realizing that all their plans, their manipulations, their monopolies mean nothing against a force they cannot categorize. You've become the variable that breaks their equations, the one factor they never accounted for. Think about the irony. They weaponized fear against the masses for decades. Fear of poverty, fear of law, fear of being outcast. They thrived on it, controlled societies with it. But now, tables flipped. They're the ones consumed by fear. They taste the very poison they once fed the world, and it chokes them. The FBI scrambles with dossiers filled with your movements, yet the truth is, they're not tracking you. They're tracking phantoms. Because your rise is not in one place, it's everywhere. It's in the way conversations shift in coffee shops, in the way workers in factories now hold their gaze a little higher, in the way students in classrooms talk about possibility instead of obedience. You've multiplied. You're not a person anymore. You're a phenomenon, and phenomena cannot be arrested. That's why the panic deepens. Billionaires, these architects of inequality, realize money can no longer silence what you've unleashed. They can fund think tanks, they can buy networks, they can even commission smear campaigns, painting you as dangerous, unhinged, or criminal. But those efforts only amplify your legend. Every attempt to bury you becomes proof that you matter. Every article written to demonize you becomes a torch that spreads your flame wider. The FBI knows this, too. They've seen history, how revolutions never start in war rooms, but in whispers. And you've weaponized whispers into earthquakes. Billionaires sit in skyscrapers built on fragile glass foundations, and now every whisper beneath them feels like dynamite. They cannot rest. They cannot breathe without wondering if the next tremor will shatter their empire. Your unstoppable rise has cornered them into the one place they swore they'd never be: reaction mode. Understand this: billionaires don't react. They dictate, they order, they manipulate. But you've inverted the game. They now react to you. Your silence makes them squirm. Your words make them sweat. Your moves, or even the rumor of your moves, dictate their investments, their security measures, their very sanity. And what terrifies them most is not what you've already done, but what they can't predict. You've shattered the script they wrote for the world. Their wealth was supposed to guarantee certainty. They thought with enough money, every outcome was predictable, every threat containable. But you've proven otherwise. You've proven that no fortress is unbreachable, no fortune is unshakable, no dynasty eternal. So the billionaires panic. Not because you've destroyed them yet, but because you've proven you can. And possibility is more terrifying than reality. Reality can be faced. Possibility lives in the imagination, and the imagination of billionaires, once filled with visions of conquest, is now haunted by you. Picture it: a room of billionaires in tailored suits, voices cracking as they argue over you. One insists you're just a phase, another swears you're orchestrated by foreign enemies, another whispers you're supernatural. They argue not because they disagree, but because none of them knows the truth, and ignorance is agony to them. These men built empires on inside knowledge, on secrets no one else could access. But when it comes to you, they are blind, and blindness breeds paranoia. That paranoia is your crown. The FBI files label you as a destabilizing force. The billionaires label you as a threat to markets. The media labels you as a dangerous anomaly. But beneath the labels is something far more honest: fear. A fear they cannot phrase, because to name it would be to admit defeat. To admit that you've done the impossible, you've made billionaires feel powerless. Do you realize what that means? It means you've already won. Not in the future, not in theory, now. Victory isn't always measured in wealth or in territory. Sometimes victory is measured in the terror you carve into the hearts of giants. And right now, giants tremble at your footsteps. So what's next? That's the question echoing through their minds. What's your next move? They've built bunkers in deserts, islands in oceans, vaults in mountains. They've doubled their security, armed their guards, encrypted their communications. But none of it matters, because your next move doesn't need to be physical. Your next move is psychological. Your very existence is the move. The panic they feel is the consequence, and yet they know something worse. They know that no matter how hard they fight, they cannot reverse the infection. Once people see that billionaires can bleed, they cannot unsee it. Once people witness the cracks in the empire, they cannot unknow it. And you've made those cracks visible. The illusion of invincibility is shattered. That's why the billionaires are panicking, because illusions, once broken, are impossible to rebuild. The FBI alert, the endless meetings, the scrambling press releases, all of it is theater. Desperate attempts to maintain an illusion already crumbled. The public doesn't trust them. Investors don't trust them. Even their own families whisper doubts behind velvet curtains. and doubt is the sharpest knife of all. Your rise isn't just unstoppable because of what you do, it's unstoppable because it's fueled by inevitability. Billionaires are mortal, their empires decay, their influence fades. But your rise, is generational. It spreads through time, through culture, through memory. They cannot outlive you. They cannot outspend you. They cannot erase you. That's why the panic is permanent. It will live in them until their last breath. Every boardroom strategy, every investment portfolio, every speech they give from now on will be shadowed by you. Their wealth is now chained to your name. Their future is now dictated by your shadow. And here's the cruelest truth for them. The world has shifted sides. Billionaires thrived because people believed they were untouchable. But now people believe in you. They believe in the unstoppable rise. They believe in the cracks in the empire. And belief is the foundation of all power. With belief gone, billionaires hold nothing but paper crowns and rusted scepters. The panic isn't an episode. It's the new world order. And you are the architect of it. So let the FBI issue more alerts. Let billionaires scream into the void. Let them buy protection, spin narratives, and lock themselves in golden cages. None of it matters, because the prison you've built for them isn't made of bars. It's made of anticipation. It's made of paranoia. It's made of the one question that will torment them for the rest of their days. What's their next move? And the brilliance is, you don't even need to answer, because silence now is louder than war. Hello, outliers. Yes, you. Those who never fit neatly into their little boxes. The ones who are always too much for this brittle world to handle. The whispers have reached every corner of the planet, and now the verdict has been delivered. You are no longer considered one of them. The stamp of humankind has been revoked. The badge of belonging has been ripped off your chest. NASA, the very institution that gazes beyond the atmosphere, has declared you something different, something not of this soil, something alien. And why? Because you dared to do what they swore was impossible. You didn't just walk a forbidden path, you built one. You shattered the ceiling they worshipped, and in doing so, you've made their definitions look primitive. Understand this. When they call you alien, they are not describing you. They are confessing about themselves. The label is their way of admitting they could not contain you, could not decode you, could not predict you. To them, you have become something outside the category of human. They only ever knew how to categorize things they could control. And you slipped through their grasp. That is why they tremble when your name is spoken. You are not their peer. You are a mirror they cannot bear to face. Think about the irony. They spend billions searching the skies, straining their instruments for signals from other worlds. But when the impossible unfolded right under their noses, when you did the unthinkable, they finally saw the alien they feared. Not in a distant galaxy, not in a distant age, but right here, in you. You became the proof they secretly dreaded, that the extraordinary doesn't come from stars far away. It comes from within the cracks of their own fragile species. And now the whispers escalate into panic. People try to rationalize it. They call you dangerous, unpredictable, otherworldly. Some fear you, others worship you. But deep down, every single one of them feels the same bitter truth gnawing at their mind. They will never catch up to you. You've rewritten the meaning of existence in a way that makes their entire history look small. That's why they brand you as alien. It is easier to exile you from humanity than to admit you've outgrown humanity itself. But isn't that what you always suspected? Didn't you always know that you weren't crafted for their ordinary pace? Every moment you spent among them, you could feel it. Their rhythm was slow, their concerns shallow, their desires predictable. They repeated the same rituals as if routine was their lifeline. They called it living, but to you it looked more like sleepwalking. They lived for approval, for recognition, for acceptance. You lived for something far sharper, the thrill of stepping into the unknown and carving it open. And when you finally tore down their limitations, the mask slipped from their faces. They could no longer pretend you were one of them. They could no longer pretend they understood you. To remain sane, they had to rewrite the story. You are not human anymore. You are alien. But what they fail to recognize is that by banishing you, they've crowned you. By isolating you, they've elevated you. They have drawn the line that says, here are the ordinary mortals, and there, standing untouchable, is the one who broke the ceiling of human capability. Now watch how their fear evolves. At first it's denial. They dismiss what you've done as exaggeration, coincidence, luck. But denial is fragile. Then comes curiosity. They analyze you, dissect your actions, debate your existence, but curiosity is never satisfied. Soon it mutates into obsession. They track you, imitate you, try to decode your methods. But obsession is dangerous because it eventually becomes surrender. And that is where they are now, on the edge of surrender. They realize that nothing they build, nothing they attempt, will erase the shadow of your achievement. Their world is small again, because you've made it look that way. You need to understand what that means. You didn't just become an alien in their records. You became the living evidence that their reality isn't the limit. That's why governments argue behind closed doors, why scientists rewrite their papers, why philosophers stutter when asked about the definition of human. You've forced a recalibration of existence itself. Every school book is wrong now. Every definition is fragile. Every hierarchy has been cracked. And this wound cannot be patched. Because once the world witnesses the unthinkable, it cannot unsee it. So let's examine this carefully. They call you alien, but that word reveals their weakness more than your difference. Alien to what? Alien to mediocrity. Alien to conformity. Alien to stagnation. You didn't escape humanity. You exposed what humanity could have been all along. The tragedy for them is that they cannot follow you without erasing the fragile comfort they worship. They are trapped in their own smallness, while you've already stepped beyond. And now the panic spreads. Media runs with headlines, painting you as both savior and threat. Commentators debate if you should be celebrated or contained. Ordinary people sit at their screens, secretly resenting you for reminding them how powerless they are, yet unable to look away. You dominate their attention not because you begged for it, but because they cannot resist the gravitational pull of someone who proves that limits were a lie. Do you see what's happening? You are no longer in competition with anyone. You are not another name in a crowd of names. You are the contradiction they cannot resolve. You are the living paradox, the one who carries human skin but operates beyond human thresholds. To them, that's not natural. To you, that's the only way to breathe. And this is where the psychological warfare begins. Every time they see your face, hear your name, recall your achievement, they feel a collapse inside themselves. They see the truth. that everything they thought was solid is fragile, that the walls they leaned on were illusions, that what they called impossible was simply a lack of courage. You are their reminder of how small they chose to remain, and that reminder is poison to their pride. But here's the darker beauty. They can't erase you. They can't erase what you've done. Every attempt to diminish you makes you bigger. Every effort to silence you makes you louder. You are not a headline, you are a pulse. You are not a phenomenon, you are the echo that keeps repeating inside their skulls. They cannot return to the comfort of normal, because you destroyed the very definition of normal. And so their only defense left is to exile you from the category of human. They think that will save them. They think calling you alien makes them safe again. But labels are powerless against truth. So let them talk, let them scramble, let them whisper about you as if you were some distant myth. Because while they waste their breath, something else is happening. You are not just alien to them. You are becoming the standard they will eventually crawl toward. Whether they like it or not, they will study you, imitate you, resent you, and in the end, they will bow to the fact that you showed them a horizon they never knew existed. And that horizon terrifies them. Because if you are no longer human, then what does that make them? If your existence forces a new definition, then their old definition collapses. And no one wants to admit they are outdated. But deep inside, every one of them knows it. They are outdated, and you are the future they feared. Remember this, you didn't ask for their approval. You didn't beg for their recognition. You moved, and the world shook. You acted, and reality split. You dared, and they panicked. That's the true measure of power. Not applause, not acceptance, but the ability to warp the axis of existence itself. And you did exactly that. So now, NASA can put whatever label they want. They can stamp alien on your name. They can declare you unhuman. But that doesn't cage you. It cages them. Because every time they use that word, they admit you're outside their control. Every time they say it, they confess you're beyond their reach. And every time they repeat it, they acknowledge you have escaped the orbit of their limitations. This is not exile, it's ascension. This is not rejection, it's coronation. Humanity didn't lose you. You outgrew humanity. And now, every whisper, every headline, every gasp of fear is just proof of your elevation. They will spend years debating what you are. But here's the truth they'll never admit out loud. They already know. You are the nightmare of the ordinary and the prophecy of the extraordinary. And while they're choking on definitions, your next step is already unfolding. Because this isn't the end of their panic. It's just the first wave. What comes next will make this look like a calm introduction. What comes next will turn their whispers into screams, their debates into chaos. And that's where the real game begins. The unthinkable wasn't a singular act. It was ignition. It was the spark that detonated the very concept of limits. And if they couldn't handle the spark, imagine the wildfire. That is what terrifies them most. The realization that your first move wasn't the climax. It was merely the opening chapter. NASA thought they could contain the narrative by labeling you alien. They thought the word itself was enough to draw a boundary around you. But boundaries collapse when they're touched by someone who doesn't acknowledge them. You don't play inside the cage. You don't even break the cage. You walk past it as if it never existed. That's why they declared you alien. Because you've made their language obsolete. Their definitions can't hold you. Their categories can't define you. Their rules can't govern you. By calling you alien, they admitted their vocabulary has failed. Now pay attention to how their panic mutates. At first they called you alien with trembling lips, like a warning whispered in secret halls. But the word spreads fast. Alien becomes headline. Alien becomes propaganda. Alien becomes the phrase on every trembling tongue. Yet the more they repeat it, the less control they have over it. The word no longer belongs to them, it belongs to you. What was meant as exile has become your crown. Every time they speak it, they reinforce the myth of your otherness, the legend of your rise, the inevitability of your dominance. And you know what happens when fear is left unchecked. It evolves into obsession. Scientists begin to watch your every move as if you were a cosmic event. Philosophers twist themselves into knots, trying to reframe the meaning of human without admitting that the word is already irrelevant. Governments convene in secret, whispering strategies, debating containment. And yet, for all their analysis, all their attempts to classify, they miss the simplest truth. You are not an accident. You are not a glitch. You are not an outlier. You are the natural evolution they weren't prepared to face. What they fear most is not the fact that you exist. It's the fact that your existence exposes the fragility of theirs. If you could step beyond what they swore was impossible, then what excuse do they have for their mediocrity? If one individual could outgrow the entire framework of humanity, then doesn't that mean their framework was always weak? That's why they demonize you. Because it is easier to paint you as an alien intruder than to admit they wasted centuries worshiping ceilings that weren't real. But here's the delicious irony. The more they call you alien, the more they isolate themselves. You aren't the one removed from humanity. They are. They are the ones trapped in the smallness of their definitions, clinging to an identity that collapses under your shadow. You've already stepped into the territory beyond, and they're scrambling to follow. They're like cavemen watching fire for the first time, terrified, awed, unable to understand that what burns them could also light their future. They can call you alien all they want, but history will remember you as the threshold, the one who proved that humanity was never the final word. It was only the draft. And that's where the chaos begins to spiral. Media becomes saturated with your presence. Every image of you is studied, dissected, overanalyzed. Children draw your likeness on school walls. Adults argue in crowded bars about whether you're dangerous or divine. Conspiracies bloom like weeds. Some say you're a cosmic envoy. Some whisper you're a government creation. Others insist you're the beginning of a new species. But none of their theories matter. The truth is simpler, sharper, harder to digest. You dared to do what they never would. And that courage, that audacity, is what makes you alien to them. Do you realize what kind of psychological weapon you now wield? Every time your name is mentioned, a crack forms in their worldview. Every time your story is told, someone somewhere questions their own limitations. You have become more than an individual. You've become the infection of possibility. You've turned doubt into a plague. People who once accepted their smallness now look at you and wonder, what if? And that single question is enough to unravel their fragile order. That's why they fear you. Because you're not just alien in form, you're alien in effect. You infect the world with the possibility they tried to bury. But here's the part they will never admit. Deep down, they crave you. Their fear is real, yes, but so is their fascination, because you represent the escape they secretly dream about. You represent the freedom they bury under routines, the evolution they choke with traditions. You are the proof that another mode of existence is possible. And while they will never say it out loud, while they will publicly condemn and exile you, privately they watch, privately they ache. Privately, they imagine what it would feel like to be you, to move like you, to act like you, to be untouchable like you. Their fear and their envy are two sides of the same coin, and both serve you. NASA's declaration was supposed to be the boundary. Instead, it became the megaphone. By calling you alien, they broadcast your transcendence to the entire planet. They legitimized your myth. They turned you into something larger than life, larger than category, larger than species. And the funniest part? They cannot reverse it. Once the world believes you're alien, they can't downgrade you back into being just human. You've outgrown that label forever. And now, here comes the shift. The panic that began in whispers escalates into global unrest. People begin to riot, not because you hurt them, but because you exposed their fragility. Protests erupt, some demanding to worship you, others demanding to destroy you. Nations divide into camps, those who see you as a threat to control, and those who see you as the dawn of a new age. Religious leaders rewrite scriptures to include you or to demonize you. Scientists rewrite theories to explain you or to erase you. But every rewrite only reinforces your dominance, because no matter what side they take, the discussion always revolves around you. You are the axis now. You are the question they cannot stop asking, and yet you stand above it all, untouched by their panic. Because while they argue about whether you're alien or divine, you're already moving into the next unthinkable act. That's the part they can't comprehend. They think the story ended when NASA declared you alien. They think the climax was the unthinkable you already performed. But that was only chapter 1. The real shock is that you are still unfolding, still evolving, still preparing to dismantle the next illusion they cling to. They don't realize that this is just the opening strike, that every headline, every whisper, every riot is only proof of how unprepared they were. The chaos is not a side effect, it is the design. Because while they waste themselves debating your existence, you've already moved into phase 2. And phase 2 will not just make them question definitions. Phase 2 will make them question existence itself. So let them choke on the word alien. Let them repeat it until it loses all meaning. Because while they cling to that word, you are writing a narrative far beyond it. The unthinkable was just the beginning. What comes next will not just terrify them. It will annihilate the last fragments of their illusions. And when that moment arrives, they will no longer ask whether you are human or alien. They will ask whether humanity ever mattered at all. Do you see what has happened? A single declaration has turned the world upside down. NASA did not just brand you alien, they branded the entire species obsolete. Their verdict carried more weight than 100 governments, more finality than 1,000 religions. Because when the institution that stares into the universe announces you are no longer human, it is not a statement. It is a proclamation, a rewriting of reality. And now, every eye looks to you not as a fellow mortal, but as something beyond. You have ceased to be one of them. You have become a category on your own. What rattles them most is not the word itself, but the reason behind it. You did the unthinkable. You broke the covenant that bound billions of them to mediocrity. They told themselves, generation after generation, what could not be done. They etched it into textbooks, into laws, into culture. and then you arrived and shattered it with your bare hands. In that instant, all their limitations were exposed as self-imposed chains. The word alien is their desperate attempt to protect themselves from the shame of their own cowardice. Because if you are not human, then they don't have to admit what you've proven, that humanity was always capable of more, but too weak to grasp it. Look closer, and you'll see the fracture spreading. The announcement from NASA was not just science. It was psychological warfare against the world itself. Every child raised to believe in the impossible ceiling now looks at you and knows the ceiling was a lie. Every adult who justified their fear by saying, "This cannot be done," must now live with the unbearable truth that you did it. That is why riots erupt in the streets, why temples echo with conflicting sermons, why governments quietly panic in closed chambers. You didn't just break a law of nature, you broke the spine of their excuses, and yet, in their panic, they cannot stop themselves from orbiting around you. You have become their unwanted sun, the force they cannot escape. Their news cycles are chained to your every movement. Their artists paint you as a savior or a monster. Their scientists dissect your DNA in theories. Their politicians argue if you should be caged or worshipped. They claim you are alien, but their obsession reveals the opposite. They are the aliens now, displaced in a world you have redefined. They are scrambling to belong in a reality that no longer needs them. But you are not just an alien in title. You are alien in presence. You walk among them and every room bends around you. People's conversations falter when you pass. Crowds hush not because you demand it, but because your existence pulls the words from their throats. You are a distortion, a rupture in the ordinary. They see you, and they cannot breathe properly. Not because of anything you say, but because of what you represent. Proof that the rules were a cage, and you tore the lock off. The chaos unfolding is not destruction, it is rebirth. NASA may have thought they were labeling you, but in truth, they branded the world with a scar it can never erase. The scar of knowing there is something beyond them, walking among them, and no amount of denial can undo it. That is why nations arm themselves not against each other, but against you. That is why priests reword their prayers not to gods, but to account for your existence. That is why the ordinary man, sitting alone at night, whispers your name with a mixture of dread and envy. Because deep down, every single one of them knows this. Your rise has rendered their small lives even smaller. And this is where the psychological war tightens its grip. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to speak. Your very existence becomes a mirror they cannot bear to face. They compare themselves to you and feel the unbearable weight of inadequacy. Every ambition they once dreamed now feels shallow. Every victory they once celebrated now feels hollow. Because no matter what they achieve, it will always pale against the shadow of the one who transcended humanity itself. That is the essence of your alienhood. It is not your body, it is not your skin, it is not your blood. It is the permanent fracture you have carved into the human psyche. And yet for all their fear, they cannot resist the allure of you. They study you in documentaries, chant about you in protests, write about you in books, obsess over you in private. They want to know you even as they tremble. They want to follow you, even as they condemn you. They want to become you, even as they brand you alien. That contradiction is their prison. They cannot escape it, because once you witness the unthinkable, you are forever infected by it. And you, in doing what no one dared, have infected the entire planet. Now notice the next stage of their collapse. They begin to turn on each other. One camp says you are divine proof of destiny. Another says you are a threat that must be erased. Some worship you as the prototype of a new species. Others curse you as the death of the old. But all of them are united in one thing. They cannot ignore you. You dominate their every thought, their every plan, their every word. You are no longer one among billions. You are the axis upon which billions now rotate. And here is the cruel twist. The very people who declared you alien have, without realizing, declared themselves redundant. If you are beyond human, then what value does human still hold? If you are alien, then the word human now describes the weaker, the smaller, the outdated. They will spend centuries trying to reclaim meaning for themselves, but the damage is irreversible. Humanity, as a definition, is already a corpse, and you are the one who buried it. Do you understand the scale of this? They think alienation was a punishment, but it was coronation. They think exile stripped you of belonging, but it gave you dominion. Because now, in every conversation about what it means to exist, your name stands as the example. You are the benchmark, you are the measure. And no matter how much they hate it, they are forced to calibrate themselves against you. That is not just power, it is immortality. So let them label you alien. Let them repeat it like a mantra. Each repetition only cements the truth that you are not bound by the smallness of their lives. You have rewritten the very word into your weapon. Alien no longer means outsider. It means untouchable. It means proof of the impossible. It means the one who did what none of them could. And that is why you are unstoppable now. Because their insult has become your crown. And as you stand in this new reality, remember, it was not a committee that chose you, not a system that anointed you. It was your own audacity, your own refusal to kneel, your own defiance of their fragile ceilings. That is the unthinkable they cannot digest. You were not given this status. You seized it, and by seizing it, you've altered the future forever. Now the world has no choice but to live in your aftermath. They wake each day in a world where your shadow falls across their routines. They speak in a language forever scarred by your rise. They think of themselves as human, but in that thought is the sting of knowing there is something more, something higher, something they will never touch. That is why they will remember you not as an individual, but as the rupture of history itself. And in that rupture lies the final truth. You are not simply alien because NASA declared it. You are alien because you proved humanity was never the end. You are alien because you carried within you the courage to do what none of them dared. You are alien because you've made their limitations look like myths. And now, no matter how much they scream, no matter how much they deny, no matter how much they beg, the truth will echo through every corner of existence. You are no longer human anymore. NASA may have spoken first. The media may have spread it next. The people may have panicked last. But when the dust settles, when the noise fades, when the history books are rewritten, there will be no debate left. There will only be one sentence carved into the bones of time itself. You are no longer human anymore. NASA declared you an alien cause you did the unthinkable, and that is the truth they can never escape.